Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Laura Milojevic. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at SimpleFi Solutions. Today, we're excited to have our Client Partner and Solution Director, Dan Skiendziel, discussing and demoing supply chain analytics. When the webinar concludes, a short survey is going to appear. So if you guys can take a few minutes to fill that out, we'd really appreciate the feedback. Please feel free to reach out to Dan or myself after the webinar with any questions. And now I will hand it over to Dan. He can take it from here.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today. What I'd like to do is just give a quick introduction. And today, like Lauren said, Dan Skiendziel, I am today's presenter. I'm joined online by my co-author of the presentation, Sarah Ramawi. My experience is primarily in the FP&A space, corporate FP&A. I have a lot of experience there leading global planning processes and working with all levels of the organization from plant floor to the C-suite. Sarah brings a lot of experience to SimpleFi as well. Sarah is a senior consultant here at SimpleFi, and she's been with us for about a year and has really good experience in supply chain management and material planning, both in the manufacturing and retail industries. Sarah will be on the call here, monitoring the chat and being able to answer your questions if you have some. Okay, so with that, I'd like to jump right into the webinar. Today, we'll spend some time giving you a brief introduction to SimpleFi if you don't know who we are. Also, answer that quick question to get us on the same page of, what is supply chain analytics? Also then look at how SAP Analytics Cloud fills the need for a company supply chain analytics needs. And then we'll go through a quick use case demo in Analytics Cloud to show you how that need can be fulfilled by SAC. So taking a look at SimpleFi and who we are a firm of partners focused on business process design, content, automation, and working primarily in SAP planning, analytics, and consolidation solutions. As you can see in the blue boxes there, we are a go-to SAP partner for SAP Analytics Cloud, or SAC. And because of our goal of having 100% referenceable clients, people like myself, client partners, we walk alongside our clients from beginning to end and beyond the implementation process to make sure you're happy. And I will say we're very successful at doing that. So with that being our goal and with our client partner approach, we have many happy customers. So one of the areas we look at in the technologies that we focus on, we look at business services such as business transformations and content deployment. We offer expert as a services, as well as we've even been brought in to do project fixes with other implementations that just weren't quite up to par. We primarily focus in the technology areas of SAP's BTP, Analytics Cloud. We used to do a lot of BPC implementations. We have only done one of those in the last year and a half or so, and to be honest, we're actually starting to replace some BPC applications with Analytics Cloud and some of the for consolidations and financial planning processes. We also work in group reporting as well. So as you can see, we do offer business platform applications too, with our newly branded content of Planify. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So just to give you a quick idea of who we work with, I'm sure you recognize some of the logos here on the page, and those are ranging of anywhere from, oh, like you can see, Goodyear and Wolverine, SumUp and Orbia, Chamberlain, etc. But we are working with them anywhere from applications from consolidations to end-to-end planning, production planning, and other analytic applications. So a wide range of use cases there in our current client base. What I mentioned earlier with Planify is our prepackaged content, where we have pretty much invested over 5,000 hours in building out applications for you that fit most all business needs. As for an example, with HR planning, most companies are going to have the same use cases for HR planning, just to use that as an example. But then one thing we do is customize that to your particular operations. Okay, so we invest all the hours up front, which gives you a faster value realization. So that's been very successful for us and for our clients. So happy to share that with anyone. So that is enough about SimpleFi. So let's just jump into today's content, talking about supply chain analytics, and particularly with SAP Analytics Cloud, which I'll refer to as SAC going forward. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here, let's just define the supply chain, this being all the way from supplier all the way through customer. But today we are going to focus on the first part of that, where we'll look at, vendors and logistics, production, all of the analysis that would need to take place in that part of the supply chain. So the first place we would look at is procurement. We could look at this, call it purchasing, obtaining materials from our suppliers or our vendors. But what we have here, there's an obvious need to closely oversee this part of the process. Orders, when they're placed, maybe the lead times, the minimum order quantities. We need to look at this to help us decide the most effective ways of analyzing suppliers and the supplier base that we have. We need to determine, as a result of that, maybe based on the grouping of suppliers or the type of material within our business, how we actually go about that process. Are we mainly a distribution business where we need to look at distribution requirement planning? How do we know what our most effective order quantities are? Maybe it's an economic order quantity process or reorder point process that we use to monitor our procurement activities with our suppliers. Okay, so this is one aspect. Another would be that procurement working with inventory management, they need to work close together to effectively control that supply chain process. It's going to be very difficult to do this from different tools. One thing you're going to do is lose version control. You could lose access to the latest and maybe real-time information. So you're going to want to have access to that. So having a single source of truth is going to be a way to go here. What I've seen typically, whether it be in supply chain analytics or corporate financial planning, is that there's lots of spreadsheets floating around, and we tend to lose sight of what the latest and greatest information is in that in those cases. One example here that you see on the screen as far as the chart goes, and we'll see that in our demo, but we need to be able to have insight as to, looking into the future, are we going to be able to meet our customer needs? In this chart here, we can see several weeks out that we have some warnings of our service level in the analytics around that, where we may not be able to fulfill our customer needs. Having procurement and inventory management on the same page here obviously is going to keep our customers happy, and that's one thing we need to strive for. So continuing that with inventory management, we do need to monitor our inventory, because it's not just about keeping our customers happy. Yes, that's our ultimate goal, but there's also financial implications here as well. Being a finance person at heart, I've always had an eye on inventory as something that, yes, supplies our customers' needs, but also if we have too much of it, it costs us more than it should through carrying costs, warehousing, and so forth. So how do we keep control, or how do we keep track of our inventory to keep it at the most optimal level possible? It's not just one thing or two things, it's a group of KPIs, it's a group of organizations within the company that work together in this area of supply chain analytics that help keep those inventory levels at the optimum level from both a customer satisfaction and a financial bottom line perspective. Another area to look at in supply chain analytics as we talk about suppliers is the performance of our suppliers. We could ask the questions beyond just fulfilling orders. Yes, we made an order, it got to our dock, we received it, we paid the bill. It goes much farther beyond that. Are they on time with their orders, with their deliveries? Is the quality of the delivered product up to our standards? Are there consistent disputes that can cost both organizations, both the supplier and our organization? In other words, are we consistently not on the same page and having to go through dispute resolution? How can we compare the performance of one supplier to another? to another. The key here is consistent scorecarding of important KPIs that are critical to the business. And as you can see here, just in the one example on the page of a scorecard that's maintained centrally in SAC, along with some other dashboarding charts and so forth. But the important thing is that all of this scorecard information, whether whoever is responsible for entering it, those that are part of the process will have access to that information, all from a single source of truth. So having that in one place, having consistent reporting of those KPIs will allow us to rate our supplier performance and allow us to compare those suppliers to one another. Lastly, as we look at procurement and inventory management and our suppliers, all those processes don't work in a vacuum. They're going to need to know how much is demanded from our customer base. They're also going to need to know what the available capacity is in place, not only from manufacturing, but warehousing, what our distribution network is, and yes, manufacturing, if that's our type of business. So we need to have those capacity measures and constraints in place as we go through and work through our EOQs, our order processing, our inventory level management. All of those work in concert to give us the most satisfied customers and the most effective bottom line that we can produce for our company. So working with all of those together, the inventory management, procurement management, monitoring our supplier performance, and knowing our demand and capacity really is a key to making our company successful. And the key here, as I've mentioned already, is how do we do that with different systems? Like I said, a lot of times those systems, quote unquote, tend to be Excel spreadsheets. Yes, we have transactional systems that receive goods, submit or generate purchase orders, but that data a lot of time lives in silos within the transaction system, within your ERP system. So how can we mine that data outside of Excel spreadsheets that float around the organization via email and so forth? How can we pull that into a single source of truth? And how would we go about doing that? Well, that's the what I want to show next is how SAP Analytics Cloud, or SAC, can fill that need. So just a general overview or architecture of SAC, we can see here that SAC is going to be more than just a place to pull in some data and analyze it. Yes, we can see the BI exploration here, but it also has planning capabilities where you can do simulations, have workflows in place, perform allocations both from a financial standpoint and non-financial standpoint for statistical data. SAC also has very strong predictive capabilities, which can play a vital role in supply chain analytics, giving you the ability to do what-if scenarios using different influencers on your organization's business environment. In addition to that, there is also some advanced application design that can take place in SAC for those more complex situations. But the core capabilities, as you can see, are listed below, where it's data connectivity. Again, that would be to your ERP system or some other centralized data source. We can visualize that data through stories. We can collaborate as we review those stories and analyze data. And it provides also varying levels of security and auditing. Again, this can sit directly, I'll say, on top of your current SAP ERP, whether that be S4, ECC via BW. However, SAC is also, to be technical about it, source system agnostic. We can connect to other data sources as well. I will not get into those details here, but it is not just a SAP only tool. It can be used by other platforms as well. So some of the things that we would look at then from a modeling standpoint in supply chain analytics perspective is taking advantage of the rich modeling that takes place in SAC. You can do the what-if scenarios. You can have driver-based predictions and forecasts. We can collaborate using commentary on some of our data points, even instant messaging within the tool. Using variance analysis, reporting, and yes, for those that cannot get out of Excel, you can also integrate directly with Excel from the tool as well. So a lot of functionality baked into SAC. So as we look at just jumping over to what the long-term objectives are for most companies, is really enterprise-wide planning and analytics. So when you look at the globe here, the universe as far as that goes. Obviously, this is a ever-moving, living organization here, going from sales to marketing. You have HR, IT, finance, and supply chain. You know, these all work in concert to make the organization run smoothly, and all of these areas really need to collaborate to foster enterprise-wide planning. It is going to break silos, and most importantly, it fosters the collaboration and provides you one version of the truth. Okay, and what that allows us to do then, it requires, especially in supply chain analytics, deep level analytics to provide clear and discernible data for decision making. That's critical in supply chain analytics, as you're well aware, I'm sure. One thing I wanted to do here was just to drop a couple of quotes from Gartner, a research firm that works in various aspects of business. I'm sure all those on the call have heard of Gartner, but they do specialize in many areas, one of which is supply chain. In one of their publications that was titled 6 Digital Imperatives for Supply Chain Leaders, they do say that 3 out of 5 supply chain leaders are considering creating a digital platform to integrate with partner ecosystems end to end. That means connecting directly to your suppliers. Now, what SAC can do for that is to help mine that data, to help bring that data together with yours, to be able to analyze that data via dashboards and other analytic analytic ways. So this is critical, and this is also what supply chain leaders are looking for as Gartner did this survey. One other quote from a different publication that they had called the primer of what every executive needs. This was revolving around supply chain, is that the overarching benefit of supply chain analytics is that they provide the insight required to make better decisions and can therefore create powerful and competitive advantage. So if you can react sooner to what's happening within your supply chain, faster than your competitors, there's no doubt that that creates a powerful competitive advantage for you. And that's why integrating your planning, forecasting, and analytics tool all in the same place becomes critical. And this is where SAC thrives, in bringing all of that together. Okay, well, that is enough on the PowerPoint slides. Let's take a jump into the tool itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to show you some of the reporting and analytics capabilities of SAC, and also give you a little tour of SAC for those that may not be familiar with it totally. So bear with me here as I just change my screen. Okay, so now you should be able to see my my SAC here, and this is being presented in Microsoft Edge. You could also use Google Chrome. It needs to be a Chromium-based browser. So here I've logged into SAC, and this is what we call our homepage. Okay, this is customizable, not only for your company. You can see our company logo down here and our Planify logo at the top, but I also have my name here, and I have certain widgets that are important to me. That's what these little tiles are. They call them widgets, and they are movable, resizable, and so forth. But this can be customizable for you, okay? Just a little bit more on the navigation side, then we can get into some specific supply chain analytics. Like I said, this was our home screen here. As we go into the menu, which is available here from the upper left, you can see a lot of the different areas that you can access. Where we look at those stories, these are going to be your visualizations. For those that purchase a license, there's a digital boardroom option as well. We can look at the modeler. These are going to be the data models that hold your supply chain analytics data, maybe from different aspects of the business, from your inventory planning system to your procurement systems. This is going to be the manner in which you can bring all of that data together. There's going to be areas too where we do what we call data actions that can perform calculations on that data to maybe create KPIs or calculate KPIs based on that underlying data. There's also means of performing allocations, and then the calendar function here too, which allows us to document and build out process workflows that can monitor a process, whether it be financial planning or pulling together your supply chain analytics for a given period. Maybe it's a repeatable process that you do on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Okay, but a lot of different options there. One way that you can collaborate with others is through the chat system up here. You could see that there's been conversations had up here already, and you can work through story visualizations and tasks with other users in a real-time basis directly in the tool. So that makes it easier to point to stories and so on and so forth. The last thing on navigation up here is currently we're in the today area. We can also look at what we call our catalog. And based on what people have published to the catalog, you will see different cards here that you can access. I have some cards also in my favorites here. And what I have here is I have some other areas, from a financial perspective in consolidations and FP&A, et cetera. But here's where I also have my supply chain analytics, for vendor management, and I have a supply chain analytics dashboard here. So one thing I can do is I could click right on the card here and I could see what's available in this card, and I have a quick snapshot of the dashboard itself, just so I could get a quick visual of what I'm going to be looking at. We can also kind of categorize this content so it's makes it more searchable, because when you get a lot of these in here, it can make it cumbersome to work through. So making them searchable is very simple. If I want to open directly to things that have been linked to, I can just click the open button. Here we can see the dashboard, but you can add other multiple stories to these cards as well, multiple visualizations, or even if there's something external that's important to the process. And for example, I just added a link to an outside blog post that's important to our process. Why supply chain needs an enterprise data warehouse and analytic strategy, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so having that link there, maybe it's a collection of links that make important information available to you instantly based on your starting point. So what I'll do now is I'll just launch right into the analytics dashboard. And what you see here is this is a summary of a dashboard that has different other different pages here within our story. This file that I accessed is called a story, and within here we have built-in charts, which are called widgets. And those charts, just to show you some of the different functionality here, we have some line charts combined column and lines, some donuts, other threshold indicators here as well. But I'll get into each of these and what some of the functionality is. But just looking at supply chain in general, as we think of the analytics aspect of it, this can be something that is linked directly to someone's homepage. Excuse me. So for example, when an executive logs into the tool, this could be the first thing that they see. They come here and yes, this is very generic with just a few material items here, maybe a few vendors as well, but this is obviously, as I have in my own experience, scalable to just about any size organization. So, but for example's sake, what we have here is we're looking at some things that are important to our supply chain process. We're looking at the material planning aspect, even looking at, from a financial standpoint, revenue and profit based on various decisions that are being made within the supply chain process. And then lastly, at the bottom here, looking at some scorecard analytics with our vendors, our vendor performance. So what I'd like to focus on now in the next few minutes is just kind of show you some of the functionality here. So let's take a look at the material planning side. And like I said, we have certain materials here, just with some generic names. So using a page filter here, we can attach these filters to all these widgets at once or just individual widgets. In this case, if we wanted to look at product 11, I could click on product 11 and you can see certain widgets updated. So these are the widgets that this filter drives. So you know that these widgets here are all relative to product 13, and they're all providing you the same information. So, or information on the same product. So as we look at this, here's one aspect that's important to supply chain is looking at the gap between our sales forecast and our sales history. So, taking a check on our demand and what our forecast accuracy is here. So if we look at our history in units versus our forecast in units, the actual history tends to be higher than what we're actually forecasting. So again, these are ways we can address this, from looking at this visually. Now, just from a functionality standpoint in SAC, we can also do things in the charts by right-clicking on them and looking at various aspects of that data. We could drill further into the dates, maybe getting into a more granular level of the dates. Here, these data points are now on a weekly basis. You can see 2023 March, week 10, week 14, etc. And that was done just by a simple click here, going to the different drill levels. We can also bring that up a level if we would like. That's a little too high for our liking, so we'll keep it at the month level. But you get the idea there, is that we can do things that give us different insights into the data. These widgets here, these charts, can also be attached to the underlying data tables through what we call a data exploration table. There's not one active here, but generally there would be a link here that we could click on that would give us the tabular information for this data. And that becomes very, very helpful if you're looking to export that data, maybe to do some offline analysis or what have you. Okay. Let's take a look at the stock evolution here. And similarly, we can do things here. Again, we can drill into it using different dates. We can rank the data. Not that this particular chart is conducive to making sense or making good use of the data for a ranking, but we could also sort the data. Another thing we could do from a collaboration standpoint is that we could add a comment here. We could add a comment to this chart that says, we'll just say inventory levels are looking good. And we can add that comment there. And now what you're going to see is that that comment will always be there. Okay, we can see by this little icon here is that someone can come here and they can see that comment. The author can go and edit that comment or delete it. Others can give it a thumbs up or add additional comments to it. So this is a good way to collaborate on periodic data that you may have for your supply chain analysis, to have those within the process being able to collaborate in real time. For example, if Sarah, who is on the call, also has this story open and I just made the comment, this comment would pop up on her screen as well, and she would be able to see this instantly and then also provide me a comment back. Okay, we could also communicate here via the chat as well. Okay. Another thing I wanted to show is, we can find that one again. Okay, this one showed a little better. This was one of the slides that, or graphs that we saw on one of the PowerPoint slides earlier. And this showed us, as we looked out into the future a few months, where we're getting some warnings based on our predetermined service level thresholds. And you can see, I mean, the PowerPoint wasn't interactive by any means, but this is, you can see as I hover over a bar here, it's going to give us a lot of information about what's in that data point. You can see right now, projected in week 1 of October, the service level is set to be at 94%. I believe our threshold is set for 90. Okay, it's set at 98%, which you can see at the split of the red and green on the box there. So anything below 98% is going to be red. Anything above it is going to be green. So you can see in week 40, which is first week of October, you can see that we're getting a warning there. And being that that is 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 weeks out, that's possibly, depending upon the lead times that our suppliers have for this particular material type 10, we should be able to react to this soon enough to make this red become green. And this we could do by increasing orders or pulling orders that are already in place, pulling those ahead into this area. But having the ability to see this visually really allows us to make those decisions or make the determination that we do need to take action. Okay, so having this all in one place, in one simple place to look at things, is going to give your organization a tool and single source of truth to be able to pull together things from procurement management, inventory management, demand, and capacity planning, as well as your vendor performance, all in one place. So for example, if we need to make a decision to pull up orders, maybe if we look at it from a different scenarios, that maybe we are seeing some warnings here because our supplier may not be able to satisfy that need during this time frame. So do we have another supplier that can fulfill that need? So here we can go to our suppliers and say vendor A is where we're getting that material from now, and maybe we also need to go to vendor B. And what is vendor B? What is their score? What is their on-time delivery? We can have all of that data central here and allow us to make decisions quickly, and I would say on the fly if you need to. Okay, but again, some of this data can be made to connect to SAC in real time. In other words, with live connections to your environment, to your source system environment, or it can be acquired as well and maybe just updated on an hourly basis. But this can be viewed to allow you to make decisions knowing that you have real-time updated data. Obviously, some of this information, like scorecards for suppliers and so forth, are probably going to be more periodic, but you get the understanding there. So if I look at some of the other pages here, we could just take a look at some more of these, dive into our vendors a little bit closer, and looking at more of that functionality here. You can see the similar scorecard. I was just talking about lead time. So if we get into our vendor specific analysis, we can look at by product, and we can see by vendor what the lead time is for any given product. So we can look at, I think we're looking at material 10. We can see that our current supplier is at 30 days. The lead time for B and C are at 24 and 27. If this is hard to look at, well, let's make it a little easier. We can just do some sorting based on our vendors here. Actually, let's look at lead time. Let's go from lowest to highest. Okay, so just with a couple clicks, I've gotten to, we're looking at number 10 here. We can see it's resorted everything to give us the lowest lead time to the highest lead time by material. So again, if you have this data at your fingertips, it took me seconds to be able to sort this data in a manner that made it more useful for me for the particular question that I needed to address. Okay. Again, as we're evaluating, staying within that same scenario of maybe needing to go to a second supplier to fulfill that material 10 need, yes, I can see their lead times here, and then I can also see if there's current disputes with the vendor. I can also see, like vendor B, what's the minimum compliance standard. We have this, the fixed reference of 65%. Yes, that might sound low, but it's just as an example right now. But you can see vendor D, we probably want to stay away from vendor D here. Has a very low compliance score, and frankly, it has the longest lead time as well. So this may be, and in addition, if I look up at the on-time delivery, is also very low. So I would start to question at this point why we even contract with vendor D. But again, unless you have this information at your fingertips and in front of you to be able to discern, it's hard to make those decisions. You can make those decisions ultimately, but they may not be as straightforward. It may be less data driven than the organization would like. Okay. I think I will, yeah, those were just additional charts that aren't used in the presentation here, but this should give you a flavor of what is capable in Analytics Cloud. I'm just touching the surface here, but the point to take away, or the points to take away from today's webinar is, one, if you are on the webinar, you know the importance of supply chain analytics and the importance that it has to your organization. You probably are also looking for a way in which to bring a lot of scattered information together so that information can be pulled together so that decisions could be made more effectively. And two, and also you're probably also looking for tools or methods that allow you to present data in a visual pleasing manner, in a flexible manner that can satisfy your organization's needs. So as we look at what's in the screen in front of us, this is not, this does not come out of the box in Analytics Cloud. This is something that was built out based on existing data in less than a day. This did not take long. So this is something that can be customized to your organization based on what your needs are. We can get into the varying levels of detail and varying levels in types of charts that make sense to your organization. So those are the main takeaways, is that knowing that we have the importance of supply chain analytics, SAC is a tool that can bring all of that disparate information together into a single source of truth. And that SAC also provides you with a great tool for your BI needs related to supply chain analytics. And the icing on the cake is that this can sit all in the same system that could potentially consolidate your financials. It can perform your enterprise-wide annual budget process. All of this can be sitting in the same tool. And this has proven to many organizations to be very beneficial, and where the users within the organization become familiar with a single tool, regardless of their discipline. And if they move from one part of the organization to the other, they know that, hey, I know we're using SAC over here. Yes, the screens may look a little different, but I know how to navigate it. I know what makes this system tick. And it's easy transition from one area of the business to another. So with that, that concludes the presentation today. I would like to thank everyone for joining. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Sarah or myself. Sorry for the flashing on the screen there. Our contact information is here, and I can leave that here on the screen for a few minutes, but that does conclude our webinar today. And again, thank you for joining. Have a great day.